Today's topic, financial planning for last year of training physicians. So whether you are just getting ready to finish up your residency, maybe you're finishing up your fellowship, this group of physicians is very near and dear to my heart because this is probably the most common demographic that will join us in their financial planning journey, where income is about to have a huge spike, student loans are kicking in, moving across the country, maybe starting family planning, need this insurance, need this asset protection, need to do this from a contract perspective. There's all these moving parts. So this is a group that we love to work with. And some of the big things that we see, we're going to cover in this video today, whether it's from contracts, whether it's budgeting, whether it's student loans versus investing. There's a lot of vital parts that really fire up at this period of your career. So stay tuned. That's all coming up next. First up, review your medical contract. I think every medical contract you have should always be reviewed, but most importantly, I think this first one is so vital because it sets the bar going forward. Now, when you have a medical contract reviewed by a qualified attorney, it doesn't mean that they're magically going to double your salary and have all this extra benefit added in there. Now, could there be opportunities there? Of course there could be. But sometimes it's just making sure you understand how the non-compete works, or, if you leave that practice, how many miles do you have to uproot your family for, which is a whole nother conversation for another day. But there's a lot of moving parts in there, not just to your salary, but also the rules of your contract. What do your benefits look like? What does your call schedule look like? So it's one of those things where, to me, it's a non-negotiable. You have to have this contract reviewed. Find a good attorney who is very well versed in this. If you go down below into the show notes, we'll also have a link there that will include some very good attorneys that can help you there. But this is a non-negotiable. Make sure you have this first contract and all your contracts reviewed by a qualified attorney, because there is a lot of moving parts in there. And if anything, it just helps you understand what you're signing, and then all the jargon is then broken into layman terms for you. Sign-on bonuses and also your gap months. I put these two together because I think they play nicely together. First up, your sign-on bonus, right? This is a very exciting thing that hopefully is included in your contract. This can vary a lot. It might be a little bit smaller in academic medicine. It could be higher in private. It doesn't always work that way, but probably more than commonly, that's how we see it. But the sign-on bonus is important because, one, it's great to get that check, right? But two, when does it arrive? Does it arrive your first day? Does it arrive after that first month? Can they maybe have it come to you early, right? Once you sign the contract, you're not going to start for another month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. Could you have that arrive early? And the reason being is because of what we call those gap months, right? Some of you will start your training or start your attending quickly after you finish up your training. Some may have a longer gap. You may actually want to have a longer gap because you're going to go take a big trip and really celebrate before you become an attending physician officially. But those gap months can have a lot of expenses, right? You really have no income for the most part. You have living expenses. Do you have moving expenses? Student loans going to fire back up? Do you have to then start to plan for a home down payment? There's a lot of big costs in here, and let's not forget health insurance, right? Are you going to go get some private plan for those gap months? You're going to use COBRA to kind of get you from point A to point B. There's a lot of big decisions that have pretty big price tags attached to them as well. So that sign-on bonus is really important. One, because it's a really important part of your contract, but it's also going to really help get you from training is done, I'm efficient attending. So make sure you put some time and energy into this. Understand, one, what the number is going to be for your sign-on bonus, but two, when it's going to arrive. And then whether you're having a sign-on bonus or not, make sure you're planning for those gap months as well. Those are missed quite a bit. I think just the excitement of, oh my goodness, here's my contract, I'm going to get started. And then we forget there's these, 1, 2, 3 months of time where there's no income coming in, but we still have a lot of expenses. So pay attention to your sign-on bonus, pay attention to those gap months. Next up, avoid lifestyle creep. I know you've probably heard this numerous times. If any of you are avid followers of Dr. Dolly, the White Coat Investor, this is that statement of, continue to live like a resident. Lifestyle creep, especially at this period, is very important because if you let things get out of control out of the gate, they're likely locked in, and you're likely building a lifestyle that you're never going to really want to go down from, right? So trying to maintain what you were doing before, understanding there's always going to be a little bit of lifestyle creep. I don't think you have to get too crazy here, but I would say, think of the doctor friend who has the biggest house in the neighborhood, has the Tesla, has the Range Rover. You're thinking, wow, they have it all. And then we get in there, we open up the hood, we see there's no disability insurance, student loans are going to be paid off in about about 100 years. So they're getting just 3% in their 401k. They're probably going to work until they're 85. Remember, don't always believe the cover of the book per se in this example. So avoiding lifestyle creep is so important. So understanding you have a fixed budget in place, actually building a budget. I know we don't love the word budgeting. We're going to cover that topic too in a bit here in the video, but do your best to avoid lifestyle creep, because at this moment in time, especially when you're transitioning from your training pay to your attending pay, the better you can keep that in line, the more discretionary you can keep in there. You're going to be very grateful in the long run, especially as you start to get into your next chapter, whether that would be earlier financial independence, that could be just family planning and having numerous children. Those are all parts that maybe in that moment we're not thinking of, but they're a vital part of your future that if things get too out of control at the start, we might not have a ton of flexibility in there kind of as we hit those next chapters. I think this is the international top question for physicians. Should I pay off my student loans or should I invest? There's this weird theory out there that it's all or none for one of them, where we come in and say it's likely a combination of them both. Let's first cover the student loan side. So student loans, usually we're aiming for two routes, right? We're either going to go for public service loan forgiveness, PSLF, which in that example, it's pretty straightforward. We want to get your payment as low as possible. We want to get all 120 qualifying payments, and we want to be going with those. If you're not going for PSLF, maybe you're a private practice and you're never going to be able to go for PSLF, this is one where we're going to usually aim for a 5-year to a 10-year payoff. This depends on a lot of factors, but for the most part, I think we keep that as a high expectation or high goal, I should say. Aiming for those 5 to 10 years is a pretty good goal. So those items should be fixed. Now we can then sprinkle in what should we do from an investing perspective. At a minimum, if your employer is offering a match on the 403B or 401k, we want to aim for that. More than likely, you got to do more than that. Hopefully we're actually maxing out. Maybe you have access to a 457B. Ideally, we're doing backdoor Roth IRAs for all of our attending physicians. Maybe you've checked all these boxes and you're thinking, now what? Student loans are on a good path, 403B is maxed out, money's going to the 457B, got your backdoor Roth done, now what? And then we could maybe look to a taxable account, or, maybe if we have children to play, maybe bring in a 529 plan. There's a lot of different places you can go, from that point forward. So to us, it's never an all or nothing. It's more or less making sure that your student loans are on a good path forward. And then after that, we want to try to get as much invested as we can. And then depending on your goals, your timelines, kind of break it into whatever proper buckets it should go to in the investment world. That's what we're really reviewing in good context there. So it's not an all or none. It's usually a combination of both. Getting student loans on a good path and getting some money into the markets for you as well. Top-down budgeting. You have officially graduated from most likely living paycheck to paycheck while you're in training. I would say not to say that our physicians are underpaid while they're in training. They're paid a good salary, all things considered, if you're just dramatically underpaid for the amount of hours that you're putting in, right? So we're now going to graduate into what we call top-down budgeting. And top-down budgeting is our attempt to make budgeting as easy as possible. And this is where what we want to do is put the highest priorities at the top. Obviously, we have the basics, right? You got to live in a house. You're going to have utilities. We got to eat some food every now and then. We're going to have certain things at the top of the budget that are non-negotiable, right? They have to happen just to actually have regular life per se. And then after that, we would then get into maybe some of our savings goals, right? Okay, in order to hit financial independence at age 55, I got to max out my 401k. I got to do a backdoor Roth IRA, and I got to put $1,000 per month into my joint account, my taxable account. Just making up numbers here, but that's how we want you to think about top-down budgeting, where we're putting all the main things at the top. And again, if you scroll down into our blog post, we have some actual examples there too, and just kind of some better ways to think through this. But then after that, I always say we won't have to monitor. I always use my Starbucks indicator or my Chick-fil-A indicator, meaning that we don't have to nitpick your budget. And the beauty of working with physicians day in and day out, we rarely get to a point where we're, micromanaging your budget, which should also give you a little bit of a warm, fuzzy feeling, because you don't need to do this on a daily basis. Heck, if you get in there monthly, fantastic. If you got in there quarterly, I usually say at our presentations, if you did a once per year budget review, either by yourself, with your spouse or significant other, that is very powerful. I mean, those are just little steps that you can take going forward, but budgeting doesn't have to feel like this chore. There's a lot of good ways to make budgeting fun and exciting, but also making sure that you're on track for certain things. Again, hey, if we're putting $500 per month because we have a huge trip coming up a year from now, or we're taking a big trip to Europe 2 years from now, you can make make this stuff exciting. So key takeaway here is you want to be budgeting, and top-down budgeting should make this as easy as possible. But also, as we kind of noted earlier on the lifestyle creep, budgeting is so vital at this phase of your career because whatever you set now is likely going to have a lot of effects going forward. So if you're doing good budgeting now, you're living well within your means, you have good discretionary spending, that's only going to help you in the long run compared to you're not budgeting, you bought the biggest house, you have the fanciest cars, you joined the country club. All those things are going to really put you in a tough spot going forward where we don't want you to be trapped like that. So building a budget is vital here. Make budgeting easy. Follow the top-down approach. Last but not least, insurance updates as a last year of training physician. The main two I'm going to add in here are going to be disability and life insurance. However, at this phase of your career, if you do not have an umbrella policy, I would also add that in there. But main things to keep an eye on here, disability insurance. Your income's going from $60,000 to a multiple of that, 250, 200, 300, 500. This is a very important time that, one, if you already have a disability policy in place that you got in place while you were in training, hopefully you also have a rider that you added there that will actually allow you to increase that policy with no questions asked. We call this guaranteed insurability. If you added what we call a GSI policy, a guaranteed standard issue policy while you were in training, this is a great time to take advantage of this. If you're watching this video and you're still in training and you don't have disability, run to HR and ask them if they have a GSI policy. Also, if you send our team an email, we can also check your program or we can get you in contact with the professionals that can sell these policies. But no matter where you are, get residency or fellowship, if you need a GSI policy, you can only get those in place while you're in training. If you are a female physician watching this video, this is really important to you because this is likely your last opportunity to get what we call a unisex policy, which is going to help keep your costs lower because unfortunately, disability is much more expensive for our female physicians. If you are a male physician, unisex isn't going to help you, but if you have an iffy medical background or you have some blemishes on your medical history there, this is also going to be your easiest opportunity to have no underwriting to get a policy in place. Now, if you were good and you got those in place already, this is just our friendly reminder that when you either sign that contract or you get your first pay stub as an attending physician, this is where you're going to want to increase that policy. So make sure you're checking that. Life insurance, maybe it changed dramatically, maybe it didn't. I'd say the one thing that comes into play here is your insurability number certainly went up. If you used, a 10 times or 15 times or 20 times multiple of your income to find out how much life insurance you want, which isn't the perfect way to do it, but just giving you some context, your income is about to go up a lot, right? I would say think of this in more terms if someone co-signed on your student loans, if you're just about to get a mortgage in place, if you have kids, right? That's the easy one. Anyone that relies on your income, life insurance is vital. So whether you need to increase it now that you're an attending, or maybe you're finally going to get it in place because you aren't attending, just wanted to put that on your radar. And as I noted earlier, that umbrella policy, simple way is always match your net worth. So if your net worth is negative student loans, or if it's working its way up, always add in at least $1 million policy. If your net worth is higher than $1 million, good for you. If it's higher than $1 million, I usually round up. So, if you're at $1 million and 100,000, I'd round up to $2 million. For the most part, umbrella policies are pretty low cost. So keep an eye on those 3 vital insurance topics as you transition into attending status. And there you have it. Financial planning for the last year of training physicians. As I noted earlier, one of my favorite topics because this is our people. This is the most common group that is coming through our virtual doors, or if you're in the Tampa area, our Tampa doors. So anything from sign-on bonuses to budgeting to contracts to insurance to student loans versus investing. A lot of important topics in here. As always, thanks for hanging out with me. If you have not done so, now would be a great time to subscribe to our channel. And if you also want to get notifications anytime we release some of this new video content, you can click on the bell icon. That will also give you a notification every time we put out new content. But thank you so much for tuning in, and then we will catch you on the next video.